Hello and welcome to this episode of Beat Teacher Burnout. I'm so glad you've joined us today. We're going to be talking about how we keep teaching sustainable. And that is a huge topic. Of course it is. But I've got a guest with me today, Angela, who I've known for a good few months now. And I have a great deal of respect for her as a head teacher, as a friend, as a fellow coach. But she digs into things and she thinks very deeply. So we're going to be looking at things perhaps from a slightly different perspective. We'll see today. So welcome, Angela. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about you?
Yeah, hi Rowena. Thank you for inviting me to talk on this podcast today. So I've been in education for 35 years. 25 of those has been spent as a head teacher. So like every head teacher and every teacher, and everyone who works in schools, I've faced all the pressures, I've faced the paperwork, I've faced the burnout moments. And when you asked me to talk on this podcast, I've been thinking about what could I share. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to share what I've learned about keeping teaching sustainable, but also about how you keep yourself whole as a person throughout that whole process.
Oh, I love that. So, what do you mean keeping ourselves whole? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's very, very important that as anyone who works, we keep things in perspective. So, yes, we have a job. Yes, we can love our job, but that's not all of us. And the other parts of our lives are as important, if not more important. And I think it's really, really, truly important to keep that perspective.
So, how do we do that? How did you do that in 25 years as a head teacher?
A variety of ways. I think one of the things that I had on display in my room, which people often raised an eyebrow on, was the Serenity Prayer, which talks about grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that acceptance of what you cannot change, and if you can focus your energy where you can make a difference, is really important. Because in teaching and in leadership, there will always be things that are outside our control. And if we can recognize those, and if we can choose to let those go, then I think that can be very freeing.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this because, yes, we have choices, but I have so many school staff at all levels who come to me and saying, I don't know why I'm doing this because I'm not making a difference. So I then challenge them with a sheet of paper I have. I give it to them and I say, right, every day I want you to write down on here one small thing where you have made a difference to someone. And it's probably something that nobody else notices. But how do you think as school staff, how do we make a difference? Apart from those tiny little things, what is it that you would say that we're doing?
For me, as a school leader, when I'm working with my team, I always say, whatever we think we might be about to do, always ask ourselves, how or will this positively benefit the children in our school? And if it doesn't, then we've got a debate, because ultimately we may not do it. And I think if you can find that question that you're talking about, if we can find a simple filter, then that can cut away a lot of unnecessary pressure as well.
Wow, that's a great question to be asking. I know a lot of teachers have come to me in the past when I was a leader saying, why are we being asked to do this? And, you've got Simon Sinek saying everybody needs to know their why. And it really helps your team if they understand why. But as a leader, is that always possible?
I think it can be. I think potentially the longer you are a leader, the more possible that becomes. I think the less concerned as a leader you are about external pressures, the easier that becomes as well, because I think then you can focus on your team, your children, your families, and do the right thing for them and take those brave steps. And I think in terms of teachers, I think it's really important that a teacher chooses the right school for them, chooses the right environment for them. As someone who sends out adverts for teachers, I never interview anybody who's not come to look around our school, because I need them to have selected our school as the right choice for them, to have met the team, to have met the children, to have sat outside the gates and, at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch the children arrive. Because not every school and not even every role will be the right fit for every teacher. And I think it's not a failure to recognise that. And I think that teachers' energies and values need to align with that school, because otherwise I do think that burnout almost becomes inevitable. You're almost setting yourself up for failure. So I think that very initial step is crucial and critical in any teacher's career. And I also think that teachers should consider, when there's a change in leadership, whether that school is still the place for them to be. And I actually feel that it's not a failure if you recognise that the school that you are in or the school that you've gone to visit isn't the right environment, and that actually it can be a very positive step, even if scary, to make a change.
Yeah. Yeah, because actually you're putting yourself first, isn't it? Because when we work in a space where it doesn't align with our values and we're being asked to do things in a way that is very uncomfortable for us, as you say, we're almost definitely heading towards burnout.
Mm.
So you mentioned in your intro, Angela, that you have had times where you've sort of gone close to burnout. Can you describe what it was and how you then overcame that?
Well, in a 35-year career, there have obviously been many times when I could say that's happened, and some might be less significant than others. I guess most recently would be the something that has led me to step away from leadership now, and I have left my school now at the end of this summer term, and so I'm heading into the unknown from September, which is an exciting, if not slightly daunting prospect. And I think there were things that were occurring in school that I did not feel actually aligned with where I wanted the school to go. Now, I know that might sound a bit strange as the head teacher of the school, but our school, I feel, was very much a team. I don't think any school should be about one person. We had another bright, shiny new set of governors starting at school, and I have seen many iterations of governing bodies over time, and I actually just didn't feel like I had the effort to go through all of those same conversations again. And I think that's where I kind of put my money where my mouth was, actually, and went, okay, that's enough. I don't actually want to do another September intake. I don't actually want to do another harvest festival. I don't actually want to have another argument about how many children and adults can we fit in the hall for the Christmas performance. And I have always said that as soon as I felt that way, then I should step away, because actually I'm doing a disservice to my school, and somebody else needs to go in who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and move the school to the next space. I don't know whether
Yeah.
that answers your question.
Yeah, well, it certainly does from a I mean, you said you'd been a head teacher for 25 years, so you've done a pretty good innings on that one.
Hello, I'm Rowena Hicks, and I'm so pleased to introduce this course to you. It's a short, practical, made to fit into your current routine course that I hope is going to help you, because I know time is precious. Staff are frazzled at the end of the day, but actually this fits into what you're doing already. So why me? Why this? Well, I burnt out after 30 years in school as a teacher, a Senko, a specialist teacher, even an advisor, and then a leader. I burnt out. I loved it. I was passionate, but I had to leave. And that just breaks my heart. Teachers are leaving and they're going off sick. This has to stop. So what I've designed is 5 minutes at the start of each staff meeting. You can give your team something small and powerful to build momentum. You'll build their confidence. You'll improve their well-being, their team dynamics, their energy. You reduce stress and overwhelm. And you're building habits to increase productivity, energy, and joy. So each week there is a short action sheet, because really there isn't going to be any change without action, is there? But there's no extra cost. You're going to be consistently investing in time together to shift how staff feel. Are they seen? Are they valued? Are they heard? Give them a voice. These are small micro-culture changes. You're going to be building your staff team, and you're going to enable them to thrive. This isn't a well-being bolt-on. It's a culture-shifting tool built for real schools by someone who's really walked it. So let's stop staff from leaving, and let's help them to flourish and thrive in their roles.
Can you remember earlier on in your career a time where you became quite overwhelmed, and what it was and what helped you get through it?
Yeah, I'm sure I can. I think one of the biggest things when starting out as a new teacher, or as a probationary teacher, as they were called when I started out, was that overwhelming feeling that I needed to be good at everything straight away, that my marking needed to be perfect and up to date all the time, that my planning needed to be exemplary, that I always needed to have a smile on my face, that my behaviour management needed to be excellent, that I could show the rest of the school that I was worthy of them employing me. And I think as young teachers, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do those things. So I think one of the things that helped me most, and I've stuck with this, is thinking about my time management. And I know that's a fairly frequent thing to say, but I think as a teacher, we can often feel like the job is never ending. And I think that setting clear boundaries is really vital. So I've always asked myself, well, okay, what's a reasonable working day for me? And that's changed throughout my time, before I had children, after I've had children, once the children had left, kind of thing. But I think generally I have stuck to 8 in the morning, I think, is early enough to be in school. And I've also stuck to 4:30 actually should be a good enough time for me to leave and go home. And that's both as a teacher and as a school leader. And I think defining those boundaries for yourself and trying to stick to them, not all the time, but in the main, I think really helps. And I think that isn't only about physical presence in the building, but I think that's also about emailing out of those hours, whether that's to parents or colleagues. I think that's also around responding to those messages that come through, maybe from other team members as well in the evening, that you don't actually have to deal with at that time. And I think that type of boundary can be used to protect you, me in this instance, and the energy that I've got for the job the following day. So I remember when I started, I used to bring an awful lot of books home to mark, to the point where I actually ended up buying a pull-along suitcase. It was yellow plastic. It's still in the loft, actually, full of books. And generally, or sometimes, let's say, those books went back to school on a Monday morning in exactly the same state that they'd arrived home on the Friday night. And that's when I think I realised that the job, as in many jobs, will just expand to fill the time that you give it. So I think if you can be clever about that and really use your time management effectively and set those boundaries, then I think it comes back to what we were talking about originally, about keeping yourself whole. Because if you are not whole, then you are not being the best that you can be, either at work or outside of work. And I think that balance is absolutely critical. Easier said than done, I do appreciate that, but critical, something to strive for, maybe.
Yeah, maybe there's a goal there for people listening on two levels, really, not to try and be all things to everybody, and also to put in some really strict boundaries. I suggested to someone the other day that once a week they leave on time. They leave at 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that. And they went, "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that." And I said, "Why not? Why on earth not?" And they sort of sat back and thought, that's such a terrifying concept to them, to actually leave on time, go and collect their kids one day a week, even. Why not? And there are schools out there, and we've had the leaders on this podcast saying, I do it so that my staff are encouraged to do it. But actually, the research shows that if you rest better, you are much more productive when you then go into work and do the work. So I know there's going to be people listening to this saying, Angela, how on earth did you leave at 4:30 for the majority of the time? When did you get all that policy work done, all the other stuff that comes with your job as a leader? When did you get it done, if that's what you did?
So the question that I often or always ask myself, and still do even though I'm not at school, is, and you may not like this one, I don't know, but my question that I would ask myself is, will anyone have died by the morning if I don't finish this task today? And the answer generally, if not always, was no. And I think that goes back to our conversation around perspective. Teaching is important, but so is being that whole human outside of work. And if you're putting a display up, does it need laminating? Probably not, unless it's holding the roof up, in which case we've got a much bigger set of problems to deal with.
Yeah, but that marking has to get done, Angela.
It does have to get done. However, I do think that marking has moved on such a lot since I started. So, there's been so many iterations of what good marking looks like. I think marking doesn't have to be written on a page. I think it's much more impactful if you can do hot marking as the children are going along, so that they know straight away what they can do to improve their work. And then you don't have all of those oodles of hours spent ticking or crossing or highlighting or whatever your particular school policy is. I think there are ways to be smart about how we work and clever in how we work, and also to challenge how things happen in schools, because as a leader, I'm very well aware that I don't have all the answers. I'm very well aware that there may be new research out there that I haven't yet got to. And I think as leaders, we've got that responsibility to listen to our teams and come back to that question, what's going to make the biggest difference for the children in our school today? And I can't see how the biggest difference is going to be teachers spending 2 or 3 hours at the end of every day marking in books, which the children may or may not ever read, and certainly may not ever get time to act on.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. We actually had an amazing leader on here recently who was talking about AI coming into their school to support with marking. And obviously the Sutton Trust says that, immediate positive feedback is better for the pupils anyway. So it's exactly what you're talking about. But I guess we need to be saying to teachers and leaders who are listening, challenge what you're doing. Is this the best way to be doing it? Because if you're so exhausted going into school tomorrow because you've been working till 10 p.m., you are not going to be creative. You are not going to be energetic. You're not going to be the best version of you for the pupils. And we all know that when we're shattered and quite glass half empty, the children pick that up, and they immediately go whoosh, don't they? And so their behavior and their response to you is in response to the energy you're bringing. So I love that. If you were going to give one more top tip, Angela, to people in school today to beat burnout, what would it be?
Oh, golly. I think, can I do two?
Yes.
All right, then. I'll do them quickly. So one would be don't work in isolation. I think that's really important. Really identify the strengths in other people, those that are around you, and work together to be the best that you can be. I think that's really important. I've got a music degree, so my music analogy it would be if one person is blowing the trumpet at full blast and nobody else is joining in, it's not music, it's a noise. But when everybody plays their own instruments at the right time, in the right dynamics, then that's when you get harmony. I think knowing when to step away actually can sometimes be the healthiest thing that you can do. Quit while you're ahead sometimes. Teaching is a vocation, but it shouldn't cost you your health. And in the words from Gerald, the giraffe who can't dance, we can all dance when we find the music that we love. So I think one of the things must be to find that version of teaching or the career that lets you thrive. And the very last thing, and it's a really hard truth, your workplace will replace you in a term at most, but your family and your friends can't. And I think when you're weighing up priorities, to keep that front and centre.
That was actually three things, but they were absolute nuggets. So thank you, Angela. If people want to sort of have questions for you about what you've said today, how would they find you?
More than happy for anybody to contact me via email, which I think, Rowena, you're going to put into the show notes for people. Yeah, absolutely fine. Would love to have a chat.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much of 35 years in education. That's a pretty gold medal, I think, for today. Thanks, Angela, so much. And thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks for listening. I hope you took something of value from today. If you want to connect, I'm at rowenahicks.com, or I have a Facebook group, which is Preventing Teacher Burnout. So I look forward to connecting to you at one of those.